Hello YouTube, my name is rhianaB. Welcome back to my Survivor 41 series review, and we have got quite a bit to delve into. Some of you might be confused. I know I was a little bit throughout this episode, but we have some new advantages, and what I would argue is one of the greatest episodes for a pre-merge contestant. We have a lot to talk about, so let's delve right on into it. But make sure you also subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on my future Survivor review videos. Also, go check out all my other Survivor review videos that I've done. I've been doing these reviews since Game Changers, off and on. So make sure to check out those videos as well. I would very appreciate it, as well as hitting the bell icon so you can always get notified. All right, so our first order of business is seeing what happens to Yasa after their tribal council last episode. We basically start off with a big centerpiece on Liana, and Liana right now is really conflicted about how she feels in the game. She really wanted to go for Xander versus Voce, who was the one who was sent home last week. And because it didn't go her way, instead it went more of Evie's way, she basically feels like, am I making the right calls? Am I doing what's right? And this whole back and forth on how she is being perceived in her mind in the game. Of course, she starts talking about this, and there ends up being a beware advantage right by her feet, not in, but near the fireplace. So what happens now? She doesn't see it. The next person who finds it, it ends up being Tiffany. Tiffany finds the idol, she takes it. Sadly, Liana and Evie are right beside her, so she has really no excuse but to share the clue with them. Turns out, it is now a different beware advantage, similar to the last one, and we'll get to more of that here in a second. But basically, every camp has this new beware advantage, whereas one person from each tribe is now going to go to a different location, and they have to make a decision. But it's not the same decision as what we have been seeing in the past summits this season. Basically, it's the option of either you go to this mysterious location or you just stay at camp. But if you do not get on the boat, you lose your vote. And honestly, it's kind of a weird advantage because, of course, they're going to get on the boat. I mean, what else are they going to do? You know, unless it's such a dire situation at their camp where they cannot leave, of course they're going to go. Of course they're going to go to this place and get an advantage, but also, of course, they're going to go because they don't want to lose their vote. And that is actually where we now move on to Luvu. Given that we haven't seen a lot of Luvu in the season so far, it's kind of nice to see this now, but this is where Sydney comes to play. And Sydney finds her tribe's beware advantage, and basically she is going through the same process that I just mentioned. She doesn't want to lose her vote. Her vote is extremely important, which is interesting because she's saying that because her tribe is yet to go to tribal council. But she knows the value of a vote. So of course, she's going to hop on the boat. What else does she have to lose? But another interesting thing about Luvu in this little segment is that also Sydney is what I kind of think, it's interesting because there are 3 players currently who have the very similar dynamic. I talked about this at the very end of my last review where I talked about Shan and Evie. Now we can squeeze Sydney into that mix as well. I think all 3 of them are playing very similar games in the sense that they're kind of going back and forth between 2 sets of people. Now I think that Evie and Shan are doing it more so than Sydney is, but we haven't really seen much from Luvu, much less Sydney. But basically what happened was Nasir had come to Sydney wanting to talk about getting rid of Danny, which is a very interesting choice because Danny is your muscle right now, and being that you are now up in numbers, you would think he'd be more interested in keeping those numbers. But basically the way Nasir said is that he wants to keep Deshawn very sweet and very connected to arguably their alliance, I guess? I don't know. But this doesn't sit well with Sydney, so she starts blabbering to pretty much everybody else in the tribe about Nasir's plan, which now puts, again, a target on Nasir's back, which now, there's been so much back and forth with Nasir in just 3 episodes. In the beginning, he had a target on his back. Second episode, he was seen as a provider, and how that would take the target off his back. Now it's back on him because now he's trying to strategize. I think Nasir is at the point where he's trying to play both an old school game and a new school game. You can't really play it both ways and try to like make them both work extremely well. You have to blend them together, and that means you have to forego certain parts of an old school game in favor of a new school, plus vice versa. You can't play it both ways. It has to kind of combine like this, or it's never going to work out for you. And as we're seeing, Nasir is not really in that good of a spot right now. But I did catch a very interesting thing in the way Sydney was talking in her confessional. She had said something about Nasir and Heather. This is the first time we've heard anything from Heather since the premiere. And it wasn't even Heather herself talking. It's Sydney saying that I want to keep this new Beware advantage away from Nasir and Heather, which makes me think these are the two players that are on the outs. But from what we've seen, from the very little we have seen of Luvu, Heather has been kind of in the mix with everybody else. So it makes me think, what is Heather's whole role here in this tribe? And I'm hoping by next episode, we can see more of this tribe because we've barely seen anything. It's mostly been Yasa and Yua, which is, again, kind of taking me back to Survivor Philippines, and I'll get to more of a Philippines comparison later. There's so many connections with Philippines this season, and I feel like Luvu is the new red tribe from the Philippines. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, because they were the ones that didn't get a lot of airtime per se. But honestly, even they got more screen time than Luvu is right now. Now, before I get in too deep, I have to talk about Brad. Brad was the big shining star in this episode. He was so captivating, and that's probably the best word I can give for describing Brad in this episode. He was fantastic. I didn't really get the best read on him or feel for him in the first episode, even in the second episode where he was not even there or even barely there. But this episode was such a moment for Brad, and I loved every bit of it. It really gave me the chance to love Brad all the more than I was in the very beginning of all of this. But we start off with Brad at camp while everyone's basically down on the beach. JD is doing his Survivor impressions. Not quite as good as Rob Cesternino's, but it's still fun and it's still cute. Basically doing Woo, doing Reem, basically showing his fandom in tandem. It's really funny and it is really cute. But everyone is doing their own thing on the beach, whereas Brad is doing work around camp. Doesn't seem off, except Brad finds the Beware advantage that Tiffany had found. So it's the same rules, get on a boat to save your vote and get a chance to get an advantage. Brad takes this, he's on a roll. This is the first step. He wants to really play the game, he wants to go all in with it. And we're gonna see how this evolves as the episode goes on. And speaking of Yua, and speaking of JD, now he is on a hunt for another advantage in the game. And look everyone, I know that this is a new era of Survivor, and that this is still in the era of big moves. There's gotta be a point where you need to stop. There have been so many people already who have been really getting greedy with their want of power in the game, that I feel like it's become a hindrance to keep going after these advantages. I understand that you want something in your back pocket to give you a sense of security, but there is a point where it becomes too much. And this episode, plus a little bit of last episode, was the perfect example of that. And JD already has an extra vote, and now he's trying to find an idol, trying to find another advantage, whatever. But he's saying that he wants to go after all the advantages. What little does he know that Brad already had the advantage. But it's still the idea of, I guess it's the mentality of you want to keep all of the advantages away from other players. And that I understand, but for you yourself, you always have to think of yourself, prioritize yourself more than anything, I should probably say. That obviously just doing all of this advantage searching, idol searching, it all becomes a lot. It makes you look desperate, especially if you get caught. And we'll get to that because that becomes very important later in the episode. But again, greed is a deadly sin, need we forget, and that plays into Survivor as well. A lust and greed for power can really hurt you, and we've seen that quite a bit already. Also, just a random point, where the hell did JD find a map? Anyone want to explain that to me? And just to put another wrench into JD's plans to find an idol, it turns out that the three-way idol clue was found on Yua. Who found it? Not JD. You guessed it. It's Brad. Brad found both of the Beware advantages. Like, what? It is crazy to think that in the first episode, I did not perceive Brad as being a new school player or wanting to go after all of the advantages and do the crazy things that survivors now become famous for. But here he is. He is now in possession of 2 Beware advantages. Obviously, they come with risk, but now this gets interesting because now he has the chance to go to this other location to get a different advantage. And now he has the potential to get an idol in his pocket if he can play this up correctly. Basically, it is the same Beware advantage that Xander found in the second episode. The whole one about the phrasing, and you have to say it all in an immunity challenge, yada, yada, yada. And I love the moment where Brad and Jeannie, who was also there, need I add, it's kind of easy to forget about Jeannie. This is the point where Brad starts making a lot of bad mistakes. And one of them is that he goes to Shan and starts talking to Shan about both of his new advantages. Here's the thing. You already have one of your allies. Have them know that you have this advantage. And they didn't even know about the other one you found. Why the hell would you go to somebody else? I don't know. It's the old Survivor question. Do you tell your ally/alliance about the advantages that you have? And here's the weird answer to that. You can, but you can't say everything. You can't share everything. And again, a reference to Xander in last episode. I feel like where episode 2 was the yin, episode 3 is the yang. These episodes are so intertwined in how they have been developed and outcomed, because this is exactly what Xander did. He went to his allies and told them pretty much everything that was in his pocket. And as much as Shan does come off as a very sweet, giving person, she's playing the game. Need we forget, Shan is playing this game, and she wants to play this game pretty hard. And she's been doing great at playing middle of the road. And now she's got to make a decision. She does trust Brad. She likes Brad. Where does she go with all this information that now he just gave her? Does she keep him, or does she get rid of him? Again, the same exact concept as what we had last episode. It's so crazy. And now we move on to the mysterious location of the new Beware idol. Have to mention the really crude dummy that Brad made to pass as him sleeping on the beach. He called it Ferris Bueller. I was watching this with my mom, and she had said Alcatraz. And of course I replied, well, at least in Alcatraz, they had a lot more time to plan for them to make a good, convincing looking dummy. But it was still funny, and I really appreciated it. But now, Tiffany, Sydney, and Brad are all going to go to this new mysterious location. And it turns out it's the similar setup of the summit, but it comes a little bit differently. So, now they're playing for a tarp for the camp and for the tribe, or a steal a vote. And this is interesting, combating the summit, which were extra votes. And I made that comment to my parents and my mom and our neighbors while we were watching this. It's interesting how the producers are doing a combat to the extra vote. You can steal a vote, and you can maybe steal it from someone who has an extra vote, which could take a number away from their alliance and give it to yourself and your alliance. I think that's clever. However, some of the more fine-tuned details and rules of those advantages have kind of come up in this episode, and now that makes me think that's not even possible. I don't know. There's so many new advantages now all at the same time, and it gets a little confusing. And this is, again, the point that I have made in, I think, more recent seasons. I think there are way too many advantages and idols in play. We've already had, around 6 at least potential advantages or clues or idols, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of almost like it's just so much weight up here, and it's going to start, like, caving in, and we might have another advantage get in like we had in Game Changers, but I don't know. It's getting a lot. It's becoming a lot. So basically how this works, if all 3 players choose a tarp, they get a tarp. if they all choose steal a vote, they will all lose their vote at the next tribal. But if at least one person picks Tarp and at least one person picks the steal a vote, then the people who picked steal a vote will get a steal a vote advantage, whereas the person who picked Tarp will get nothing. I feel like this is such a weird thing because at least on the summit, you knew that you were protecting your vote or you were risking your vote. That makes more sense. Whereas this, you're teasing these people with a possible Tarp that will make their lives at camp a hell of a lot better, especially since we're in a very harsh season this year. And then they don't get anything except they get to keep their vote. I feel like that's kind of a really bad situation. And I did feel a little bad for Sydney, who did end up picking the Tarp option and went back to camp and there was nothing there. I felt bad because I felt like she was just protecting a vote with nothing to gain or really lose for herself, which I thought was kind of, lack of a better word, shitty. And then we had Tiffany, who was trying to talk to Brad and Sydney about what they need to do. And Tiffany was actually wanting to actually risk this and have her vote possibly taken away from her. And I'm like, Tiffany, you are on a tribe with 4 people. Slow the hell down. This is why Sydney was not feeling good vibes from Tiffany, and I understand why. She's playing very aggressively. She's been very paranoid. Her emotions are a little all over the place in the game of Survivor. It just, again, it just makes me think, what is her real story here? Because she had such a great moment in the premiere. I know she's got to be a stronger character throughout the season, but she keeps making these mistakes and it's driving me nuts. So we end up finding out that both Sydney and Tiffany had chose the Tarp option, whereas Brad picked the steal a vote, which means Brad was the only one to get an advantage. Now he actually has a tangible advantage in his pocket. Now he's got to try to get the idol, but that won't be nearly as easy. Now, really quickly moving on to the immunity challenge. This is again an option where only one tribe is going to tribal council. And of course, Luvu ends up winning the challenge. But here's the thing. Yasa, lo and behold, found some adrenaline, found some strength. They end up taking second place. So that means they are safe, which means Yua are now going to tribal council. I have to mention how terribly Brad ended up trying to get his broccoli small trees phrase out. It was so bad.
Broccoli grows little bunches on small trees, so I feel like a little broccoli tree, I guess.
It was so bad that on the second time I watched the episode, I had to either mute it or I had to fast forward through it a little bit because it was just so cringe. And I hate watching cringe moments because I feel it pretty strongly and I couldn't handle that. So he kind of butchered that a little bit. Although kind of, honestly, if you butcher it, it kind of sounds like you're just bumbling with your words, which kind of fits your point you're trying to make. So maybe at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And I have to, again, give a good credit to Xander for being able to bring back in his own phrase, because you do need to say all 3 phrases at one joint immunity challenge. He did it pretty well. I'm now at the point, though, that people are going to start wondering, or at least if they're smart and observant, they're going to start noticing, why does Xander keep talking about butterflies being dead relatives? Why does, say, Deshaun have to talk about goats on AstroTurf? At the point, does someone start wondering, okay, does this phrase mean anything, or do they just like that phrase in general? As of right now, obviously, we can't answer that question, but it brings it up. Obviously, you know that people are going to know that this idol exists, so it's going to be hard to hide that you have it. But now it's also the wonder if now people are going to be suspicious of you, and they're going to think you might have something, because obviously you're saying something that has some sort of significance. I don't know. Food for thought for when that comes in the season. So now, getting to Yua. On the chopping block, we have Brad, and we have JD. This decision of who to go with was very, very interesting to me. I have to mention the brilliance of the Survivor editors, though. There's this segment where JD decides to go to the bathroom, and it cuts to a bird pooping. And then next scene is when JD gets caught with his extra vote clue in his pants. JD, you got some explaining to do. Why in the hell would you keep your either the vote itself or the clue to that extra vote? Why would you keep it in your pants? You've lost some weight in 7 days. You've barely eaten much. You've lost weight around your waist. Why are you keeping it in your pants? Why not keep it in your bag or bury it somewhere? At least Brad had the initiative to bury his Beware Advantage earlier in the episode. I was so taken aback as to why JD did this. And because of that little lapse in judgment, Shan caught him with that advantage on his person, and now she's feeling like she can't trust JD. And now she goes to Ricard, and the both of them are going to start talking about who do they want to get rid of. Do they get rid of JD, who has shown that he is a player and that he is someone who is willing to make big moves, make big risks, and now he has just lost trust with them because he hid an advantage from the both of them. But now you also have Ricard's argument where he does not trust Brad because Brad is equally as sporadic, very sneaky, doing these things that can come off as being very paranoid, very much pulling a Tony in Game Changers, need I say. So now, and obviously Shan also knows that he has all this power in the game. So here we are again, another UA Tribal Council. Shan is in the middle. Where does she go? Does she go with Brad and Jeannie, who are very close, or does she go with Ricard and JD, who aren't necessarily close, but they, I think, could at least do, like, voting blocks, I guess? So now Shan has a big decision to make. Who does she want to go further in the game with? Who does she see as being the bigger threat? And we get this really, really great analogy from her talking about her own personal experiences and how she had, at a very young age, she had to choose between her mother and her father when they both got divorced, and how that decision she had to make that young really affected her and still does. This is the same exact scenario of picking between two people she has connections with. It's just a matter of who does she see herself being more comfortable with. But here's an extra little kicker here. JD, as a sign of trust with Shan, decides to give his extra vote to Shan. Now, obviously my first thought was, oh, this is Sarah and Sierra from Game Changers. A lot of references to Game Changers as well. But now she has his extra vote as a sign of trust. I don't think it's possible for her to use it because she didn't earn it, but we don't know that rule yet. But that adds an extra layer. JD does trust Shan, at least for right now. So that adds an extra layer onto her decision. So when we get to Tribal Council, we have a lot of discussions about trust, how that is the big word in Survivor. It's trust. And do you go with tribal alliances or your own personal alliances? And Ricard makes the point that he wants to stay individual. I think Shan is as well, but I think she also considers the tribal aspect of alliances and trust. Then we have JD, who gets a really good moment here talking about his love of Survivor and how it has taught him to be the person that he is today, shouting out Woo and Malcolm and Ozzy, these big powerhouses and big stars of this game and this show. And at first I thought, okay, we're giving him a bit of a send-off here. Is this his quote-unquote exit statement? My gut was telling me no. Here's the thing. JD got such a big edit in the premiere. I knew there was no way he was getting that big of an edit in the premiere and him going out at third. There's just no way. But part of me was also like, well, they did this to Voce last episode too. So I was conflicted, but my gut was telling me that Brad was going to go home. Turns out that I was right. Sadly, with a 3-2 vote, Brad becomes the next person voted off of Survivor 41. And Jeannie did not look happy, so I can only imagine how next episode is going to be for Yua and for Jeannie in particular. A lot of stuff coming up next episode. episode did not go the way I thought it was going to go. I expected this episode to go a completely different direction. And yes, I was a little disappointed with how it went, but also we need to talk about like the new superstar, at least of the episode. Plus, the way it ended with a bang. So, we do have quite a bit to discuss, so let's delve right on into it. First off, we are going to be beginning at Yua as the aftermath of last tribal council where Brad went home, and Jeannie's not happy. Jeannie's pissed, and to the point where she's so mad at the rest of her tribe that she is threatening to not make food anymore, to not do a lot of the labor around the camp. She is the worker. I mean, she's very like blue collar. That's kind of like her personality type. She's really funny, but that is mostly her personality type. So she's now threatening to cut off all work. And then Shan, I don't know if this was a smart move on Shan to do this, but out of nowhere, she starts spilling the tea on Brad's advantages and basically saying, you know what, you thought Brad was your number one? No, he was my number one. I'm the one who is his number one ally. And I don't think that was the smartest thing to admit, because really what does that do? If anything, it exposes that you had a number one ally and it wasn't the other three people who were still in the game. So I don't know. The only thing I will say is that when JD had kind of combated what she was saying about, oh, why did you guys get so mad about me having an advantage and yet, but you couldn't tell me about Brad's advantages. And my combat to that is, first off, JD, you were being a very, very big idiot and just having that clue or having the advantage itself in your pants, visible to pretty much everybody. And at least Shan was disclosing somebody else's secrets, and that person's no longer in the game. So those secrets are all up for grabs and seeing who wants to take advantage of that information. So I didn't quite agree with JD's whole reasoning as to getting angry at Shan, but I still don't think that was the right move for Shan. But, as we'll see later in the episode, it really doesn't come back to bite her in the ass like it probably should have. So, we'll wait till the end of the review for that. Oh, and this is going to be very important as well. JD did get his advantage back from Shan, and because in the episode last week, she had taken his advantage as a sign of trust from JD. So now JD has it back in his possession. So out of nowhere, we get an award challenge? Now, call me crazy, but I would think on a 26-day season of Survivor, and the producers and Jeff have all been really wanting the season to be very like fast-paced, cutthroat. I didn't expect there to be any reward challenges, just them by themselves. I was expecting for pretty much every challenge to be a reward and an immunity. But nope, we got a random reward challenge out of nowhere, which I guess is fine. But it did lead to a cool reward, being that someone that is local to Fiji, knows the lands, knows how to make it work, would come to someone's camp if they were the first person to win, and they would just learn off of that Fijian person. And then the second place would just get one big fish. And that's it. Honestly, kind of sad. It kind of reminded me of rainbow fish. Anybody else? Okay. But the main focus of this episode was how badly Heather did in that challenge. And now I completely understand why they have been trying to keep Heather out of challenges and keeping her on the bench. Because I don't know if she's really good at doing the faster pace challenges, or the ones that require a lot of dexterity, a lot of speed, maybe a little bit on aerodynamicism, I don't know. But yeah, she's not the best in challenges. I think as of right now, she's only competed in one challenge, and that was in the premiere episode. I think every other challenge she is sat out, except for that one reward challenge, which really wasn't even the most physical challenge that they've done this season at all. So it's not I don't know how well she's gonna be doing. Not that the more recent seasons haven't been focusing on physical aspect. They kind of have, but it's not as big of a deal anymore. So I think she's fine, but it doesn't make her look much better, at least to the eye of the person who's watching. Obviously, people on the tribe, they felt bad for her to the point where Danny decides to give Heather like a Jimmy Johnson and NFL coach style talk, like what you would have in a locker room, saying, no, you're fine, you know, we were all giving it our all, you definitely gave it your all, don't be upset about that, we're fine, we lose every once in a while, blah, 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 blah. So basically, Luvu lost, which means Yua got first, and they will have the Fijian expert, as well as Yasa, who won the big fish. Honestly, not a bad win for a tribe that has only 4 people. Like, honestly, if Yasa or Yua, if they had won that challenge, that's a pretty decent sized fish, and given they haven't had a lot of food the past couple of days, it wouldn't have been bad. If Luvu had gotten second place, though, that one wouldn't have worked out so well, because there's still 6 of them, 2 extra mouths to feed. Really quickly, I do want to talk about Yasa, because they had a couple of cool moments in this episode. First off, Evie giving her Jeff narration impersonation was really, really funny, and I guarantee there's got to be tons of behind-the-scenes footage of people doing that at camp. It just doesn't make it on air, but it's just really funny how they incorporated it into this episode and this season in general, because I just thought it was really, really funny. And also, Yasa had little baby turtles! It was a really cute scene with all the little newly hatched turtles trying to make it back to the ocean, and you know, and Xander and Evie, I believe, were shouting like, dig, you gotta dig! Again, playing off of Jeff. It was just really cute, and how Evie described how these turtles are like all 4 of them on Yasa, that it's about never giving up. It's always striving toward your goal, and you fight to get to your goal no matter what, or you die, or in the game of Survivor, you get voted out. So it was just really cool. It was really sweet to seeing all the little baby turtles. It was really, really cute, really precious. Quickly now to Yua, we have Nathan, who is the Fijian expert, basically doing things Ozzy probably wish he could still do today, and that is being able to climb down a tree upside down. That was crazy. I was getting very nervous for Nathan, but he is an expert, so I did have some trust in him. But he was doing a lot of cool things, like teaching him how to fish and how to really open a small coconut with a piece of rock and making it explode. That was pretty interesting. Coating your fish into coconut water. So that was really cool to watch. I don't even remember, when was the last time they had done that in Survivor? I know that they did it in Palau. I want to say Micronesia, but probably not even Micronesia. I know they've done it multiple times, but I just don't remember when was the last time we saw this happen. So it's kind of cool. Again, a little nod to old school fans, bringing back a reward that we don't really get to see anymore. It was really more of an old school tradition, so that was kind of fun. Also, I loved the line Jeannie gave. Jeannie had a lot of great one-liner jokes in this episode, and she goes, you know, that Nathan was giving moves that as the best stripper that you've ever seen. I mean, come on, that's funny. That was funny. I love that. Jeannie has been, I don't think she's my favorite player, but she's really, really funny. I do like her character now. So I'm glad we're seeing more of Jeannie, because she's really, really funny. Now, let's get into some things that are a little bit more interesting, shall we? Finally, we get to talk about Luvu, which seems so strange given how these first 3 episodes we've barely seen anything from Luvu. But now things are getting interesting, and this is what happens when you are on a team that never loses. People who are wanting to play this game, now they're starting to scheme. They're starting to sneak around. They're trying to play the game. And this is where Erica finally comes into play. We finally get to see both Erica and Heather in an episode. How about that? So Erica is not happy how she is not being able to play the game of Survivor the way she wanted to play it. She is someone who knows this game and she wants to play hard, but she's on a tribe that has always won. They haven't been to tribal. They haven't been able to act out strategy. Well, now this is her time to shine. So she goes to Deshawn, who she views, I guess, as the best thinker on the tribe. And honestly, given the people that are on the tribe, I don't really blame her for thinking that way. But she goes to Deshawn and says, let's get out Sydney. Sydney is very irrational. She's someone that we can't really rely upon. She's very quick to her emotions. Fair. I totally understand that. I do. But the thing is, I don't think Erica was fully aware of, yes, you're playing or you're talking to a person who you believe is just as smart as you are, but that also means that they can also outsmart you back. And that's what Deshawn exactly does right after talking to Erica. Deshaun doesn't really trust Erica, he trusts Sydney more, probably for the reasons why Erica doesn't trust Sydney. I think he sees Sydney as being someone he can really work with and kind of manipulate because she's not super in depth with the game, or at least we haven't seen anything to the contrary. And Sydney also has very much a big head. She's got a big head, a big ego. She really does think of herself very highly, to the point where I was just like rolling my eyes because I'm like, okay, girl, you need to calm down. You need to calm down. You think you're Little Miss Perfect. You think you're the best. You probably will change your mind when you start hearing people probably talking about you behind your back. But now, this is getting really interesting because now that they have been winning so much and they haven't experienced going to Tribal and actually playing quote-unquote the game, not that they haven't been playing the game, but you know what I mean. Now, Deshaun is now trying to push for everyone, not everyone, but most of the tribe to throw the challenge. Danny, however, being that he's a professional athlete, he's not really down with that plan. He says himself that, you know, as an athlete, this is a sin to be throwing a competition like this. But what Deshaun is trying to do, he's trying to avoid the unintentional Tang Dane. For any of you who don't know what that is, it's a play on what happened in Survivor Philippines, which is a reference I've made in my past couple of reviews. It is basically when a tribe keeps winning and winning competitions to the point that they come into a merge with all of their numbers, or maybe extra numbers if there's a swap, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, they go in with all of their numbers. Now, when they get into the merge, because they couldn't play the game in the pre-merge, because of the fact they kept on winning, they now have this urge to really play and make big moves. So, or the other option is that there's gonna be like one or two people who are kind of stragglers who were not part of the bigger picture in that original tribe. Now they come into a merge where they have more options, and they usually take those options and the original tribe just completely falls apart. I'm having a feeling that's what's gonna happen with Luvu if they keep on winning. If they lose, maybe that'll change things up. But for right now, the way that they keep on winning, even after what we're gonna see in the immunity challenge, it's looking like that the unintentional Tang Dang is gonna happen here. So now we do get to the immunity challenge. And oh my God, bless Deshaun and Danny too, but mostly Deshaun. He was trying so hard to throw the challenge, and the thing is, when you're on a tribe with Nasir, he is gonna be pushing it. He's going to be screaming for you to go, go, go. You know, what else can you do about that? To the point that even with Deshaun lagging in the water, retying knots on the block bag, and really botching the ring toss, it was still not enough. Granted, they didn't get first, that went to Yasa, but even with all of that work he did, it wasn't enough, and Luvu did take second place, sending Yua to Tribal Council for the second week in a row. I just kept thinking, this is so sad. I just felt so bad for Deshaun, and honestly, I wanted them to lose. I wanted to see the drama that was gonna happen on that tribe when they were gonna go to a Tribal Council. We still have hope that it could happen soon before they merge, but it didn't happen today. And again, I was a little disappointed because we didn't get to see Luvu, but it was an interesting final outcome. It really was. But I kept thinking that this is exactly how it happened in Cagayan with Apari, who was the Brawn tribe. They were trying to throw a challenge to get out Cliff, and that didn't work because Cliff was a beast in the challenge, and also Luzon, the Brains tribe, was just a complete another train wreck. So another little flashback to a past season for you. So on the chopping block for Yua, it's pretty easy being that there's only 4 people, but it is Jeannie, who was Brad's real number one ally, I would assume, besides Shan. So Jeannie, and then we have JD. Now, again, with a 4-person tribe, it really makes Tribal Council very interesting. So there's a lot of back and forth between every single person on the tribe. And Jeannie in particular is actually thinking about rolling her dice, or using her dice to try to save herself, and that more than likely JD would go home. So JD obviously is very concerned about this. So he is trying to talk Jeannie into not doing the dice, and so is Shan. Shan is also not trusting of Shan taking the dice, because that's taking control away from Shan and Ricard to some extent. Also, Jeannie wants to take out Ricard because she views Ricard as being the mastermind. I do wonder if we haven't been seeing a lot between these two, because I feel like there's a lot of animosity, because Jeannie did write Ricard's name in the very first episode, and I don't know if that started at all or what, but I guess they just don't have good vibes on each other. And then JD also goes to Ricard and says, okay, no, I'm not going to vote with Jeannie. I want to work with you and Shan. You both are my number ones. I want us to be the three of the tribe. And Shan, yet again, Shan in the middle. I really feel like she is the one who is pushing for all of the shape of the pre-merge. She is making so many important decisions. And it's amazing how no one has really caught on, or that they have caught on, but they want to work with her because they want to be with the person who is in control. So they feel like they themselves are also in control. And that might also be the reason why Ricard is really close with Shan. I feel like both of them have really solid games and they work very well together. So maybe that's the reason why, and also why they really don't want JD to work with them. So speaking of the dynamic duo, Shan comes up with a plan with Ricard. She's gonna act paranoid. She's gonna act like she's going home, or she feels like something is off, something is not right. She'll go to JD and she'll talk to him, fool him into giving her his advantage yet again as, again, a sign of trust. And the crazy thing is, JD actually gives it back to Shan. Like, why? You already gave it to her. That was already a sign of trust. Why would you think that she would go back on you if you really are trusting of her? Why would you think she would go back on it and give it back to her? I think JD is probably has the ultimate like fan syndrome. And what I mean by that is because he's a super fan and he really wants to play the game, it kind of blinds him into making very dumb mistakes. Last episode, it was when Shan first discovered his extra vote. Then it goes into this episode, where now he gives the advantage back to her, when he really didn't need to. It would have been more beneficial because, as we'll see, it kind of gives Shan an extra leg up in the competition. And we also got a little bit of a callback with what I heard. I think what I heard on Rob Has a Podcast is the Shantham, which is the little I mean, come on. You gotta love someone who's got their own theme music. At least it's not cheesy theme music. That's the other thing. If it were cheesy theme music, I would not love it as much. But being that it's Shan and it's not that complex, it's just very simple. Everyone can sing along and hum along to it. You gotta love it. So now we go to Tribal Council. And it's really tough. I was going so back and forth. Is it going to be Jeannie or is it going to be JD? Is Shan going to go loyal with JD, or is she going to have somebody to more easily control? I don't know if I'm reading that correctly, but basically, where is Shan? Mostly Shan and a little bit of Ricard. Where are they going to go? And JD is trying to hint, get rid of Jeannie, get rid of Jeannie. She's not going to roll her dice. I think we're convinced she's not going to roll her dice. And even to the point where he gives a little wink to both Shan and Ricard, which I thought was really, really funny. And I don't know, when I was watching it live, and then when I watched it back, my gut was just telling me, I think it had to be Jeannie. I really think it had to be Jeannie, because also part of me was like, there's no way that JD has gotten quite a bit of a great edit this overall season, and he's not going to at least make it to the merge? I mean, come on now. But unlike last week, where my gut was correct, and when Brad went home, my gut was not correct, this time it was a 1-3 for JD. JD becomes the next person to be voted out of Survivor 41, and oh my god, when I saw that, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what? Like, in my head, it was like, there is no way that JD has gotten this much airtime and this much of an edit for him to go home 5th. Like, what? I was so blown away and I was so taken aback, but I do think that Shan did make a big move here. She made a very big move. Now it has given Shan more power in the game with the extra vote that JD had. Now, it's hard because the extra vote is very tricky in Survivor history because it hasn't worked well in many occasions, but who knows, it might change here because Shan is a very smart player. I think she could make it work, but we'll have to wait and see on how she could make this work for her. But wow, Shan made a big move here. Now we're gonna have to wait and see on this, if this was a good move, or was this just big move for the sake of big move. But wow, I was so taken aback. I really didn't think that JD would be gone this soon. Honestly, if this is not a big reason for Survivor producers to not have an early boot or pre-merge cast season sometime in the future, I don't know what, because you already have JD, you already have Brad, both of these players have to come back and play again. And plus there is a slew, and just in the last 10 seasons, of players who were in the pre-merge, who were really good, had a lot of great gameplay, and were great characters that need to be brought back. We have seen some, but there's just a lot of them we haven't yet to see. They need to come back. So Survivor producers, highly doubt you're watching this, but if you are watching this, get on making a pre-merge early boot season, because if we can at least get Brad and JD back, I'm good. I am definitely down for watching it. But yeah, that's it for this review. Wow, quite a bit has happened. And I'm just so intrigued on how this overall season is gonna go. Shan is kicking ass. I can't wait to see her play. And I'm really hoping that she makes it far, because if she gets cut early and becomes a robbed goddess, I'm gonna be so angry. I'm gonna be so mad. But we'll have to wait and see on the rest of the season. So if you did like this review at least, please give it a thumbs up. Leave me comments down below. What did you think of this episode? What did you think about Shan and her big move? What did you think about JD going home? What did you think of Lulu not being able to lose a challenge? Whatever you have to say about the episode, I would love to hear it down below. And if you want to see my future videos or videos I've already done, go ahead, hit subscribe and hit the little bell icon so you can be notified when my videos come out. That's all I have for you all today, and until the next video, bye! Mwah!